The British automotive scene has given birth to some of the most prestigious car brands in the world. Names like Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Aston Martin, and Jaguar have dominated the realms of luxury, speed, and elite racing. But there's one brand that, without reaching the same level of exclusivity, became a symbol of exciting, accessible sports cars, with a legacy worthy of respect. We are talking about Morris Garages, also known by its initials, MG, a manufacturer that once revolutionized the industry with light and agile vehicles, perfect for those who wanted to experience the thrill of driving without breaking the bank. Morris Garages has a history spanning over a century, and although its present-day image is far from its golden years, its famous post-war Roadsters remain prized collectibles among automotive enthusiasts around the world. Today, we step back in time to uncover the origins, rise, glory, decline, and resurgence of Morris Garages, the British brand that refuses to die, now operating under the vision of a Chinese giant. By the late 19th and early 20th century, the world was beginning to shake off the structures of the past. Oh, steam trains still crossed continents, and steel ships ruled the oceans. But something quieter, yet just as powerful, was already in motion. The automobile powered by the internal combustion engine. Germany had invented it with Carl Benz. The United States had popularized it through Henry Ford's mass production. And in England, a land of aristocrats and industrial pioneers, names like Rolls-Royce and Bentley were emerging, offering majestic vehicles of absolute luxury, mechanical cathedrals on wheels. But not all of Britain's automotive revolution was born from opulence. In that same era, a young man of humble origins dreamed of building a different kind of car, more affordable, more practical, more accessible to the majority. His name was William Richard Morris. He was born on October 10, 1877, in Worcester, into a working-class family with limited means. Like many young men in Victorian England, his formal education ended early. At the age of 13, he left school to work as an apprentice in a small bicycle repair shop. Among gears, tires, and oil, young William found more than a trade. He discovered a calling. At 16, his family moved to Oxford. The university city was beginning to see modest industrial growth, and bicycles were the transport of choice for the working class. There, Morris refined his skills in a larger workshop, quickly earning a reputation for a rare talent. He could modify bicycles to each customer's preference, making every unit a unique creation. But Morris didn't just want to be a great mechanic. He dreamed of having his own space, his own brand, and he made it happen. After 6 years of disciplined work, he founded his first workshop in Oxford in 1899, simply named the Morris. His business model was a different kind of bet. He didn't build bikes from scratch. He sourced parts from various suppliers and assembled them in his shop, creating quality products at low cost. A simple logic, but revolutionary in its execution. By 1901, as motorcycles began to appear on British roads, Morris expanded his catalog. He applied the same modular approach: third-party parts, in-house assembly, optimized costs. The success was immediate. But William Morris was already looking further ahead. He knew the real shift wasn't in 2 wheels, it was in 4. In the UK, cars were still a luxury for the elite. But in 1908, the arrival of Ford's Model T changed everything. For the first time, a car was built for the masses. Transportation was being democratized, and Morris took note. In 1910, he founded Morris Garages, a dealership and mechanical workshop in Oxford. At the time, he didn't manufacture cars. He sold, repaired, and modified models from brands like Wolseley, Singer, and Standard. But just like with bicycles, his improvements enhanced the original: greater durability, lower maintenance costs, better efficiency. The workshop quickly grew. His reputation spread beyond Oxford, and within just 5 years, Morris made the leap that would change his life: stop selling other people's cars and build his own. Thus, in 1913, the Morris Oxford Bullnose was born, the first car produced under his name. A simple, reliable model, designed not for aristocrats but for the common man. This marked the official beginning of Morris Motors Limited, the parent company of the future Morris Garage, and the dawn of a new chapter in British automotive history. The Bullnose, nicknamed for its rounded front grille, quickly became a commercial success. Mass production and the use of standardized components allowed Morris cars to be significantly more affordable than their competitors. Within months, Morris Motors had become the most promising car company in Britain. But the outbreak of the First World War interrupted its rise. The Oxford factory was repurposed: ambulances, transport trucks, aircraft parts. Industrial efforts shifted entirely to the war front. When the conflict ended, Morris Motors had not only survived, it had emerged stronger. The mass production experience gained during wartime turned into a strategic advantage. Upon returning home, thousands of British soldiers were seeking affordable, functional vehicles. And Morris had the answer. By 1921, over 50% of all vehicles sold in the UK bore the Morris badge. By 1923, Morris was producing more cars on British soil than Ford. And by 1924, the company launched its second model, the Morris Cowley, even more affordable than the Oxford, extending its market dominance. But William Morris knew volume alone wasn't enough. He needed talent to sustain that growth. That's when he met a key figure, Cecil Kimber. This young engineer, sharp-minded and forward-thinking, saw driving as a form of art. While Morris envisioned practical cars for the masses, Kimber saw something else: passion, speed, emotion. To him, a car shouldn't just be functional, it should inspire. From the start, William Morris gave Cecil Kimber complete creative freedom. He knew his cars were reliable, but also saw they could be more: lighter, faster, sportier. In 1924, Kimber took a Morris Oxford, lowered the chassis, redesigned the body, and fine-tuned the mechanics. The result was a radically different automobile. Thus was born the MG 1428 Supersports, and with it, a new brand, MG, in honor of the place where it all began, Morris Garages. The impact was immediate. British motorsport, long dominated by opulent and inaccessible cars, now had a revolutionary contender: an affordable sports car, practical for everyday use, but with the soul of a racer. Sales exceeded all expectations. Ever pragmatic, William Morris saw the potential and allowed MG to position itself as the performance division within his growing empire. By 1928, due to increasing demand, the new subdivision opened its own plant in Abingdon, Oxfordshire. From upgraded dealership to independent marque, Cecil Kimber's sports car dream had finally found a home. It was the beginning of a symbolic duality: Morris and MG, function and emotion, mechanics for the masses, and adrenaline for the enthusiasts. Two separate paths, born from the same workshop. From its very beginning, MG didn't just build cars to drive, it built cars to compete, to challenge, and to make history. And throughout the 1930s, that philosophy conquered racetracks and shattered records. In 1931, with the experimental MGEX120, nicknamed the Magic Midget, the British marque achieved its first major international milestone, breaking the 100-mile-per-hour barrier with an engine of only 750 cubic centimeters. The record was set at 103.5 miles per hour on the Montlhéry track in France, a feat that seemed impossible for such a tiny machine. Then, in 1933, just 9 years after MG was founded, they conquered Italy's legendary Mille Miglia with the iconic MG K3 Magnet, becoming the first non-Italian brand to ever win the race. They defeated giants like Alfa Romeo and Bugatti on their home turf. The records continued in 1935, this time on the Bonneville Salt Flats, where the MG EX135 surpassed 128.6 miles per hour, setting a new world speed record. Throughout the decade, MG accumulated victories in Ireland, the Isle of Man, Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Monaco. They weren't the most powerful nor the most expensive, but they were the most ingenious. And that was enough to win. Their track success skyrocketed their commercial reputation. Models like the MGTA and MGTB Midget became the favorites of a generation of young Britons dreaming of speed, without breaking the bank. The future looked unstoppable. Sales soared. The brand image was impeccable, and every racing victory added credibility to their next release. But the world was about to change. In 1939, with the outbreak of World War II, the sound of roaring engines was replaced by the thunder of artillery. MG was forced to halt its production and redirect all its industrial capacity to support the war effort. Within weeks, both MG and Morris Motors began manufacturing military vehicles, aircraft parts, and transport equipment. The world of racing and sports cars was put on hold, facing an uncertain future. The war marked the end of a golden decade for the brand, but it also planted the seeds of a powerful post-war rebirth. Throughout the war, MG and Morris Motors manufactured ambulances, transport trucks, and aircraft parts for the Royal Air Force. One of their most critical wartime tasks was building cockpits for British bombers, a government contract that kept the Abingdon factory running until 1945. But when the war ended, MG faced a daunting challenge. How do you restart car production in a devastated Britain, with material shortages and a fragile economy? And yet, in the middle of that bleak post-war scenario, an unexpected opportunity emerged: the American market. Thousands of U.S. soldiers, stationed in Europe during the war, had discovered the thrill of driving these small, nimble MGs during their time off. Light, precise, and packed with driving excitement, things their heavy American V8s couldn't match. When they returned home, they brought back more than medals. They brought back a deep affection for MG. The MGTC, launched right after the war, was the first to capitalize on this new interest. Based on the pre-war MGTB with only minor updates, it became an absolute hit in the United States. Where Americans had bulky, straight-line V8s, the MG offered curves, agility, and soul, a mechanical rebellion with a British accent. The enthusiasm was so strong that the U.S. quickly became MG's most important market. To meet demand, MG launched the TD in 1950, a more refined version with better finishes. Sales soared. However, the MGTF, released in 1953, didn't have the same impact. Despite being technically improved, its styling still reflected pre-war influences, while rivals were aiming for modernity. But Morris Garages had an ace up its sleeve. In 1955, they unveiled a car that would launch the brand into its golden years, the MGA. It was a design and conceptual revolution. Smooth lines, aerodynamic curves, no traces of the Victorian past. The MGA was the rebirth of the British Roadster in the post-war era, stylish, agile, affordable, and thrilling. It embodied a new spirit, freedom, youth, and speed. The press praised it. The public embraced it. Over 80% of production was exported to the US, where it became a cultural icon. To reinforce its sporting image, MG entered it in the 1955 24 Hours of Le Mans. It didn't win, but it crossed the finish line, and that was enough to cement its legend. In 1959, the MGA Twin Cam was released, a more powerful version with a dual overhead cam engine. It was fast, but plagued by reliability issues, limiting its success. Still, the company was already working on what would become the greatest success in its history, the MGB Roadster, launched in 1962. What made it revolutionary? It was the first MG with unibody construction, making it lighter and more rigid. It weighed just a ton but packed a 1.8-liter engine with 95 horsepower, hitting 106 miles per hour. It was quick, reliable, easy to maintain, and cost less than a third of a Jaguar. It became the best-selling sports car of its time. In 1965, the MGB GT arrived, a fastback coupe version. Sporty, practical, elegant. Many called it the world's first affordable grand tourer, a car you could race and still use to get groceries on the weekend. Morris Garages was living its prime. It was exporting to dozens of countries, and its name had become synonymous with youth, design, and adrenaline. But behind the scenes of this success, the British automotive industry was beginning to show cracks. By the late 1960s, the British automotive industry had plunged into a deep crisis. Most local manufacturers, independent and fragmented, were falling behind in the face of growing competition from abroad. Japanese and German brands like Toyota, Datsun, Volkswagen, and BMW were setting new benchmarks. Reliable vehicles, efficient engineering, and most importantly, modern and effective production management. In 1968, fearing a total collapse, the British government pushed forward one of the largest industrial mergers in the nation's history, the creation of British Leyland. Its mission was to unify brands like MG, Triumph, Austin, Morris, Rover, and Jaguar under one roof, hoping to build a national champion capable of taking on the world. But the very move that promised salvation turned out to be a corporate disaster. MG was absorbed and sidelined. The focus shifted elsewhere. Financial and strategic priorities were directed toward more profitable brands like Jaguar and Rover, leaving Morris Garages as a neglected cog in a bureaucratic machine. Decisions were no longer made in Abingdon, but in distant offices run by men who had never driven a proper sports car. The fallout was swift. Costs were cut, production centralized, and the sole MG had built over decades, on racetracks and public roads, began to fade. Meanwhile, the rest of the world moved on. In Japan, a car called the Datsun 240Z hit the market. It was modern, reliable, faster, and cheaper. In just a few years, it overtook MG as the go-to sports car for a new generation. By 1975, British Leyland was posting major losses. Strikes, mismanagement, and a lack of innovation pushed it toward collapse. MG was shelved, waiting for an inevitable shutdown. In 1979, the company announced the closure of the historic Abingdon factory. And on October 23, 1980, the last MGB rolled off the production line, marking the end of an era. The end of the British Roadster as the world had known it. In a desperate bid to keep the brand alive, British Leyland introduced the MG Metro in 1981, a sporty version of the Austin Metro. But it wasn't the same. It was a front-wheel drive hatchback, lacking the character and spirit that once defined MG. Though it achieved some commercial success, it was rejected by purists as a betrayal of the brand's soul. Eventually, British Leyland was restructured and evolved into the Rover Group. Trying to reignite the MG flame, they launched the MGF in the 1990s, a modern two-seater meant to be the spiritual successor to the iconic MGB. The return was met with praise. The press celebrated its styling, performance, and homage to the brand's classic roots. But the excitement was short-lived. Another financial crisis hit the group, and once again, MG's future was thrown into uncertainty. In 1994, the Rover Group was acquired by BMW. The press framed it as a fresh start, but the reality was very different. The German giant was only interested in Mini and Land Rover technology. MG was left on the sidelines, a relic from a past they didn't know how to fit into the modern era. By 2000, BMW abandoned the project and sold MG, along with Rover, to a group of British investors who formed the MG Rover Group. With limited resources, they tried to recapture the brand's magic with the MG ZR, ZS, and ZT, sporty versions of existing Rover models. They were decent, but not legendary. The market was unforgiving. Japanese and German brands dominated, funding was tight, and by 2005, MG Rover Group officially declared bankruptcy. Once again, MG was adrift, but this time, salvation wouldn't come from Oxford, not from London, not from Munich. It would come from the other side of the world, from China. After MG Rover's bankruptcy in 2005, one of China's oldest automakers, Nanjing Automobile Group, acquired the rights to Morris garages. The move was met with immediate skepticism. British media was torn between nostalgia and disbelief. How could a brand so deeply rooted in English heritage survive under Asian control? What would remain of its soul? In 2007, Nanjing reopened part of the historic Longbridge plant in Birmingham, producing a small number of vehicles based on MG Rover's existing designs. But the project clearly lacked long-term vision. Everything changed that same year when SAIC Motor, China's largest automotive conglomerate, absorbed Nanjing, and with it, MG. Unlike its predecessor, SAIC wasn't driven by sentiment. They acquired MG with a strategic vision to turn it into a bridge for entering key markets across Europe, India, the Middle East, and Latin America. The brand's British past would serve as symbolic value, nothing more. Their first major step came in 2010 with the launch of the MG6, a clean-looking sedan, far removed from classic British styling. Other models followed, the MG3 in 2011, the MG GS in 2015, and most notably, the MG ZS in 2017, a compact SUV that found great success in emerging markets. With no remaining industrial links to the UK, Aside from partial design efforts from some European studios, MG evolved into a global brand with a pragmatic spirit, a symbol of how Chinese capital could revive once fading Western marques. But the biggest turning point came after the pandemic, when SAIC fully embraced electrification. In 2020, they launched the MG ZS EV, their first all-electric SUV. And in 2022, they took a bold leap with the MG4 EV, a modern hatchback, well-equipped, competitively priced, and with real range, designed to challenge Tesla, Volkswagen, and BYD in critical markets. Today, Morris Garages is no longer what it once was. The brand that began in the workshops of Oxford, crafted for driving enthusiasts, is now a functional, affordable, and global automaker. It no longer sells nostalgia. It sells practicality, and it's working. By 2025, MG is present in over 60 countries, selling more than 500,000 units annually. In regions like Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, MG is no longer a museum relic. It's a real, everyday option for millions. MG is a clear reminder that nothing lasts forever. Brands evolve, industrial empires shift, and what seems unthinkable today may become reality tomorrow, even for the most iconic names. And so, we conclude the story of Morris Garages, a brand that refuses to die, carrying a legacy truly worth documenting. If you've ever crossed paths with MG, or you're passionate about the automotive world, don't forget to leave us a comment. And if this story captured your attention, you might enjoy discovering how one of South Korea's greatest industrial empires collapsed during the 1990s crisis. Daewoo. See you in the next video.